Hello, fellow travelers. Under the watchful gaze of crows perched high above, we embark on a journey etched in shadow and ink, and guided only by the trembling needle of a compass that defies reason. Take a deep breath as we unravel the unknown.
Hello fellow travelers, my name's SG, and welcome to the channel. Now what if I said Jay and Silent Bob's journey throughout Kevin Smith's Viewaskew Universe's movies is actually a modern day retelling of Homer's The Odyssey? Now I know what you're thinking, it sounds odd, doesn't make sense, but once I prove the facts to you, I think it's kind of hard to say that they are not in fact one for one in their representation. Now, there is a lot of religious iconography in Kevin Smith's movies, and it does have a lot of elements that do fit. And I will go over it one by one, not by points of evidence, but rather by movies, seeing where they land, and at the end we will see a full timeline of how the storyline kind of connects. So, with all that being said, please leave a like, comment, subscribe down below if you want to stick around to see how this all kind of plays out. Well, please and thank you. Let's get started, shall we? Now, when we talk about the Viewaskew universe, we have to go right from the beginning, that being Clerks. Now, that one's more of an introduction to just all the characters, Dante, Randall, Jay and Silent Bob of course, and their daily adventures working at or around the Quick Stop and RST videos. And while this doesn't add much to the theory itself, this does add an element, especially to Silent Bob's character, suggesting that he is more of a thoughtful character, one that's very literate and willing to give or pass down knowledge that could help Dante or Randall in the future. And in a lot of ways it does. And this does solidify his overall personality and character throughout the rest of the movies. The same can be said for Jay, who is just seen as a hyperactive person and kind of a hyperactive foul-mouthed dealer, but at the end of the day is not a bad guy. Just like anyone in the movie, he has his flaws as well, just like Silent Bob. And for the most part, that's pretty much where the Clerks interpretation does come from. But we do start to see more of this play out, connecting to the Odyssey in the next feature film Kevin Smith did. Mallrats is the second installment in the Viewaskew universe, not as critically acclaimed as Clerks was, and as many other Kevin Smith films were down the line, but this does have a stronger relation to the Odyssey for Jay and Silent Bob than most of the other project does, and that being the Trojan War or the Fall of Troy. In the movie, Jay and Silent Bob are dead set on destroying the set of a show called Truth or Date. They are filming the show in the middle of the mall, which is considered an eyesore to many of the regular patrons, especially Jay and Silent Bob. When they're not hanging outside the Quick Stop, they're hanging outside the pet store. And for the remainder of the movie, Jay and Silent Bob are often trying to see, in Looney Tunes fashion, to take down the stage and destroy the show's premiere. But their main thing is they can't get past the guard, the floors, and every time they try, they keep getting caught by him. But when Brody and Quentin come and tell them that they have a foolproof plan, not just to destroy the show mid-air, but to take down the entire set, Jay and Silent Bob step up and help them in this endeavor. They do this by sending in Brody as a false or a fake contestant on the game show, mainly because one couldn't show up. And there we already have our Trojan horse. He's there to pretend to be participating or saving the show, but is actually there to destroy it, giving Jay and Silent Bob enough time to destroy the show and Brody's antagonist throughout the series. And at the end of the movie itself does give a big hint to the whole placement of the story at the very end, but we'll get to that in a little bit. The next appearance takes place in Chasing Amy. Now this movie centers more around a drama rather than a comedy, but when we do see Jay and Silent Bob, it's not really much for comedic effect, more of just to add the story of Amy herself. But surprisingly enough, this does still have some relevance to the idea that this is an Odyssey kind of retelling. Holden and Banky are our two main characters in this movie, and they are known to be comic book artists. And they are using the likenesses and storylines of both Jay and Silent Bob to promote their comic book called Bluntman and Chronic. This goes on to be a major theme later on in the storyline, but for right now we'll keep this kind of contained to the movie. Now this does have relevance mainly because when Homer originally did the story of the Odyssey, it was never written, it was told. As if somebody had followed Homer's telling of the Odyssey and had written it down for future generations in a poetic format, going down a long list of oral storytelling to written works. This works in the same vein as that, as Holden has admitted several times that the storylines and characters are just Jay and Silent Bob's story and life, just told in a more superheroic and cartoony way. And there is a presence that is seen again later on down the line, but again, we'll talk about that more towards the end once we get all the evidence out. Now when it comes to connections, there's no stronger one than probably Dogma. Dogma is definitely one of those ones that, if you had to look at it, you could say, yeah, I can kind of see it. Dogma is all about a woman finding out that she is the descendant of Jesus Christ himself from the angel Metatron, and she is set out to stop the opening of a church in New Jersey because this event is said to be one of a kind, a special event that only happens once every few hundred years. And that being that once someone walks through the door and after a christened church, all sins are automatically forgiven. And Ben Affleck and Matt Damon make an appearance in this as fallen angels, thinking that if they cross this threshold, they'll be forgiven of all their sins against God and allowed back into heaven. And I know what you're asking, how are Jay and Silent Bob involved in this one overall? And that is, they are the chosen prophets by God. They are to help her figure out how to get to New Jersey safely and stop this church proceedings from happening. She's even given the advice that just follow them and they'll find the way there ultimately. This goes along with Odysseus' storyline, saying that he is both hated and loved by certain gods, sometimes getting assistance and sometimes being the vain of. We even see them fight Gargoltha, 2 or 3 demons, and even the devil himself, all of which fought by Jay and Silent Bob. And whether through luck or cleverness, or some mix of both, Jay does ultimately find a way to kind of put an end to all this, or at least give them a direction to go. And finally, we get to Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And while I wouldn't normally do this, I'm going to combine it with Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, mainly because they are the exact same storylines, and probably the more connected to the journey aspect of the Odyssey than any other storyline. And there's even the idea that they're kind of doing the same thing Odysseus does at the very end of his storyline. Jay and Silent Bob are on their way to Hollywood, to Miramax specifically, so that they can stop the making of the Blunt Man and Chronic movie, mainly because they don't want anybody using their names, or they want their names back for the reboot's sake. Now this can connect to Odysseus, mainly because at the end of his story, he's trying to stop usurpers of the throne, aka trying to protect his throne and his name. Now these two movies do have deep significance to the Odyssey as well, other than that, such as in Strike Back, Jay and Bob get a ride to Hollywood with 4 women, who are claiming to be animal rights activists. But in actuality, these women turned out to be international jewel thieves that just used random men to take the fall for their crimes. And while Jay and Silent Bob weren't their original targets, they did make use of what we could see later on down the line. Now this could be a play on the Odysseus storyline, The Sirens, where when men hear the music, they are lured to their death by the rocks below. A contributing factor in this is that every time Jay sees them, music kind of plays in the background, and following them almost led to his death, and or arrest, depending on who you ask. There's room to believe that Justice could have been Calypso, but that's neither here nor there, and there's just a very loose fitting on that. Though Tracy Morgan's character can be connected to the Phaeacians, or the Satyrias, mainly because they listened to Jay's story and were kind of touched by how much he had gone through, and so much so they pointed him in the right direction and showed him how even to get in. So there is room for that as well. As for Reboot, we do have a good connection as well, where Jay does meet his long-lost daughter, or the daughter he didn't know he had. This does go in, of course, to Odysseus as well, where Odysseus, when he first arrives back home, he meets the son that he never really knew well as well. But the roles are reversed in this one as well, with Odysseus' son Telemachus helping him reclaim the throne. It's Jay trying to help them get to Chronicon. But the idea still remains of 2 long-lost children that ones didn't know they had, making appearances just at the end of their journeys, or in the middle of their journeys. Also, in both Reboot and Strike Back, we do see them travel down a highway or road, either way, and that could be considered a route for the River of Styx. Now this fits more with Reboot, mainly because Jay and Silent Bob get help from an otherworldly duo, Method Man and Redman, where he gets his advice on how to be a father when he really doesn't even know how to be one himself. You could relate this back to when Jay and Silent Bob, as I said before, met them and was talking to... This could be back to Odysseus talking to spirits of the otherworld, giving him advice and directions on the journey. Just one works more as hallucination, while the other works more as actually communing with the spirit realm itself. Now when it comes to Clerks 2, there really isn't much to say. It's much more gags on Jay and Silent Bob's end. Still funny, but it's much more what we don't see that it actually has more effect with the overall story, connecting it to the Odyssey. And that being that Jay and Silent Bob had been away for a long time because they were arrested for suspicion of mischief, or more precisely, driving with a deployed airbag. And they had just been released from rehab. Now this could connect to Odysseus' storyline where he was pretty much stranded on an island with just him, alone on Calypso's island with just her, and lamenting the fact that he can't come back home, or there's a home that he'll never be able to see again. Until an order of higher powers, that being Zeus, Poseidon, and several other gods, decree that he has paid his debt and he is being released back into the regular world, or back home. Again, sounds like a prison sentence rather than just being locked away. Clerks 3 doesn't really add much more to that story other than the fact that they have finally made it home. They're now starting their own legitimate dispensary business right where RST video was, and that's mainly because no one rents DVDs anymore, and or VHSs. And just like Odysseus, have lost a dear friend that has been with them since the very beginning, that being Dante at the very end of the movie. But there is more to this ending than we let on that does kind of fit with the overall idea of the Odyssey itself. But we'll save that for more of the breakdown. Now the character traits of Odysseus has been separated between both Jay and Silent Bob. Jay being more prideful, Silent Bob being more clever and tactful. Jay leading the charge, but Silent Bob figuring out all the ins and outs. But what if I were to tell you that Silent Bob does kind of tie this theory all together? And that is because he is based on probably one of the most important figures in the book. Not a main character, but the creator himself. Now Homer, the creator of the Odyssey, as far as we could tell, as far back as we can go, did not put himself in the story or as the witness of the story, but rather he put in a self-insert character, that being Demodocus. Now this Demodocus was a blind bard. Homer himself was blind as well, and just like the bard would recount stories of the Odyssey to those that would listen. Now why would I bring this up? Because we do have that exactly in the Viewaskew universe, aka Silent Bob. Silent Bob is a characterization of the original creator of the Clerks movies, Kevin Smith, creator and writer of all the movies. And just like Homer, Kevin Smith wrote Silent Bob with one defining feature, and instead of blindness, it was that he was mute. He just chose not to speak, except in important notices. And we do know for a fact Silent Bob loves retelling the stories that are important to him, such as Chasing Amy in the movie Chasing Amy, and of course the Bluntman and Chronic storylines. In fact, Holden explicitly says it's because of them that he managed to write such amazing storylines such as Bluntman and Chronic and Chasing Amy. And jokingly ask, is there any more ideas you have, because you guys are like the golden goose. Now while this could be played as just a thematic coincidence, it's kind of hard not to see that, whether intentionally or unintentionally, there is a connection between the two. Jay and Silent Bob, from side characters in a story about two clerks complaining about their lives as clerks, to becoming the main characters of their own odyssey. From starting off in front of a convenience store, to traveling literally thousands of miles across the country 3 times, favored by God herself, hated by demons below, chosen literally by entities beyond their own understanding to lead the way, and stopping the destruction of the world itself, sparking rebellions against corrupt television networks on live television itself, constantly hunted by both men and creature alike, being tricked, beaten, tossed around, and then ultimately imprisoned, falling in love, and connecting with the children they didn't know they had, or more specifically Jay had, and ultimately ending up back home, richer than their wildest dreams had ever imagined, loyal friends by their sides, a thriving business that they put all their energy into, and a loving daughter by Jay's side, who, in his own words, makes him the happiest man in the world. And with all that being said, that would be the end of Jay and Silent Bob's Odessey. Is what I would like to say, but as we know, there's still way more to the story coming later on down the line. And I won't be too far behind myself. And now with all that being said, thanks again for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like, comment, subscribe down below, and hope to see you guys next time. Snoogin.
Snugganooch! I'm a poet and I didn't even know it, Silent Bob. Snoogin.
But before we go, on May 23rd, I will be doing my first live stream. Please come and join us if you want. We'll be doing some analog horror viewing. We'll play some Markiplier's interactive videos. And then we'll be looking at some independent animations from Glitch and from various other sources. I'd really appreciate it if you can come and join us. Just sit back, relax, and watch some videos, theorize about some things that could come in the future with these different videos. And all in all, just do a complete breakdown of Glitch's newest work, that being Game Oververse Pilot. Thanks again for watching, and hope to see you there.